let's burn some incense. Let's start saying Om, climb to a high mountain. Let's get a nose ring, you know? Let's get a yoga mat, because we're talking about energy, intuition, trusting your gut, etc. Not going to spend too much time on this, but I just want to give you a little bit of a preview of some really amazing advice that I got from someone on this subject. I met this individual at a Christmas party a few months ago, and we hit it off. He's in his 60s. He's married with kids, retired, and we started chatting. And as you know from listening to Dennis and Julie, I talk a lot about how I have a lot of mentors in my life. I'm very blessed to have a lot of great, great friends my age, but also I have many friends who are significantly older than I am, male, female, from all different walks of life, even from many different countries, believe it or not. And when I encounter individuals like that, I just try to learn as much as I can from them. And if they're wise and they have something to teach me, I try to just integrate them into my life and soak up as much of that wisdom as I can. In fact, that's what I did with Dennis. When I first encountered Dennis, I was so taken with his work. He influenced me so much. I emailed him to thank him for his influence on my thinking. Then he invited me, into the studio. He invited me on the show. But after that radio interview that we did, we were just going to go our separate ways, it seemed. Like, I just met Dennis once, was on his radio show, goodbye. But I actually contacted Dennis, and I said to him, I would like to be your summer intern. I literally just proposed this to him. I said, I would just love to work for you this summer. And I said, I will do anything that you want me to do. I am not high maintenance. I will get your dry cleaning. I will shine your shoes. I will organize your desk. And by the way, I absolutely did that. I definitely organized his desk. I will, run errands for you. I literally do not care. I just want to be in the room with you. I just want to be as physically close to you as I can as you're going about your everyday life, because I have so much to learn from you. And that's how all of this got started. I was literally his summer intern for one summer, and I did do all of those errands, but I sought him out because he was so wise and I just wanted to learn. Yes, Sean, you're cutting in. You're going to reminisce about that summer. It's when we first met too.
I am, but first, when you said, when you first encountered Dennis Prager, like you were on safari and he was lumbering across the Serengeti.
I was on safari, in fact. I was on the internet. That's how I encountered Dennis Prager.
Yes. No, but to your point, when you did that first radio interview, I came into you during the break after your first segment. I trusted my gut, and I said to you,
when's the podcast? It's the first thing Sean ever said to me. He opened the door, came in, and he goes, when's the podcast? But the important thing is, at that time, I had no idea there would be a podcast. I just thought Dennis was so wise and I wanted to learn from him. Anyway, back to the whole energy stuff. So I encountered this guy at this Christmas party and thought he was really wise. And recently we had coffee and we sat there for like 3 hours. And he was just telling me about his worldview, which very much has to do with a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. You know those people who have like such a sturdy worldview that they, even if you don't agree with all of it, they so believe in it and it has worked for them and it has been time tested. When you encounter those individuals, it's so thrilling. This guy was that individual. And so I just want to give you some takeaways from our conversation. And we recently filmed an episode of Dennis and Julie about this, and I just want to alert you to it for you to watch it, because it was so funny for me to sit across from Dennis Prager and talk to Dennis, who's Mr. Logic, rational Bible, Torah guy, about energy and intuition and your gut. It was so funny, and God bless him, he was very open to it. But that one is a really good conversation. So let's start with the first takeaway, and that is about projection. This individual and I, we were talking about negative thoughts, and I, like many people, definitely suffer from having negative thoughts. you're not good enough. You're not, pretty enough. You're not going to get married. You're not going to succeed. You're stupid. You're this, you're that. I mean, who doesn't have these thoughts all the time, right? Nobody likes you. You're made a bad decision this morning. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have read this, etc. So we're talking about those bad thoughts. And this individual said to me, so much of life is projection. If you are feeding yourself bad thoughts and you're telling yourself all the different ways that you're going to fail and you're not good enough and it's not going to happen to you, you will project that outward. It is a guarantee. And so he said, when you have negative thoughts, you need to do something. You need to catch it and you need to flip it. That was his advice. Catch it and flip it. Be aware of the negative thoughts and totally turn them on their head. So if you're telling yourself, I'm never going to succeed at my career, it's never going to happen for me, I'm not going to be successful, oh my gosh. Catch that thought and flip it. Tell yourself, no, I am going to succeed at my career. It is going to happen for me. Because again, if you are thinking that it's not going to happen for you, it's not going to happen for you. Because you're going to walk about your everyday life, and that is the energy, to use our, incense burning hippie term, but it really is true. It's not something to snarl at. It's true. If you're telling yourself all these negative things, that is what you are going to project. And so I said to this guy, as he was explaining this to me, I said, well, what if the negative thoughts are true? What if the bad things that you're telling yourself, even though they're hard and maybe they're debilitating you, what if it's actually true that you're not going to succeed at your career? You're not going to meet the person you're supposed to be with, or you're not good enough? What if you're catching them and flipping them and you're going in the positive direction? And what if the positive direction is lies? I said, isn't that kind of placating yourself? Like, isn't that just like taking a glass of wine and placating your emotions when you may really need to face the hard truth? And his answer I thought was so good, where he said, not all negative thoughts are bad. You need negative thoughts in order to propel yourself forward. You need to be appropriately self-critical. But many human beings tend to get into the realm of thinking the worst and not having the negative thoughts be an appropriate amount of self-criticism, but the negative thoughts become a kind of indulgence, and they become a kind of, total, synopsis of what's going to happen to you. And he said the negative thoughts could be just as much of an illusion as the positive thoughts. Like you think that the negative thoughts are true, but the positive reality could also be true. Yes, it could be true that you may not succeed at your career, you may not meet somebody, or that you're not good enough, but it could also be true that you will succeed at your career, you will meet someone, and you are good enough. So why wouldn't you choose the positive route? Because even if the negative route is true, being mired in those negative thoughts is just going to keep you back. Whereas being positive with an appropriate amount of self-criticism, that is what is going to propel you forward and what you will be projecting. Yes. We'll pause for a minute.
A famous quote or meme, and I don't know who it's attributed to, but it's, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yes. That's so true.
And this is a little behind the scenes, but you and I have gone through this, and I'm kind of like there for you when you're questioning yourself and unnecessarily, because you have a very powerful spotlight. It's what enables you to seek out facts and truth in these stories to present here, and it's a very powerful thing you have in your arsenal. But when you take that spotlight and you turn it around on yourself, it becomes very negative and just as powerful. It was Henry Ford that said that. Henry Ford said that. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I always give you advice not to turn that powerful spotlight you have around on yourself, because I've learned from life experience, when I suffered from manic depression through much of my life, I was doing the same thing. And when you turn that spotlight around on yourself and you start to focus on the negativity, and then if you're depressed, you start to trip about the fact that you're depressed, and it
Yes.
spirals out of control. So you have to turn that spotlight around and focus it on the positivity, because then you can spiral upwards. There,
Yes.
was that hippy dippy enough for you?
Total hippy dippy. No, it's great advice, but here's the thing, it's universal. Every single person, unless you're like a sociopath and you have these illusions of grandeur, every single person gets bogged down by these negative thoughts. And we think that every thought that enters our head is true. But that's not necessarily the case. Nancy Collier, I had her on the show. She's a psychoanalyst, and she's sort of into this kind of stuff too, energy healing, etc. She said that. She said not every negative thought that you have of yourself is in fact valid. But here's the thing. Negative thoughts become an indulgence, because there is something strangely comforting about believing that your fate is out of your hands. As upsetting and debilitating as negative thoughts can be, it's not, no one like associates negative thoughts with comfort necessarily. But as debilitating as they can be, in a way, they are someone's indulgence in their comfort. Because then you can tell yourself, oh yeah, well, it's not going to happen for me because of this, or I didn't have this opportunity, or I didn't go to this college, or I didn't use these years of my life wisely, or I exited this relationship, or I entered that relationship, and all of those things that I did wrong, or that life denied me and didn't work out to me, that's what's going to, seal the fate for the rest of my life. And when you believe that, you are resigning to this comforting idea that your fate is out of your hands. And one of the most empowering things, I believe, to internalize as a human being, and especially as an American, is that you have your destiny in your hands. Of course, life can throw you stuff. You can fall terribly ill. You can get into a terrible car accident. You can get fired from your job. Stuff can happen. But we as human beings, and especially in, at least for now, a mostly meritocratic, though dwindling, system in America, we do have our fate in our hands. So let us not resign to this idea that it's all over for us, or it's not going to happen for us, or life is denied us. That is BS. That is us trying to rationalize to ourselves when we have been disappointed in ourselves, instead of changing course. And part of changing course, as this person revealed to me, is really trying to project positive thoughts. Because two people can walk into a room with the same reality in that room, but they have if they are projecting different things, and if they have different thoughts, they will have fundamentally different conceptions of that reality, and they will exit that reality with totally different outcomes. Your mind is really all that you have. Your mind determines everything. If you make your mind strong, and if you project a appropriate amount of positive thoughts and confidence, it will reap benefits in your situation, because that is how you will be perceiving life, and you will see opportunities, you will see wisdom, you will see things crop up. And if your headspace is in the right place, you will be more likely to identify those and take advantage of those, versus if you're walking into a place thinking, oh, it's all bad, I suck, life sucks, life's denied me things, blah, blah, blah. One final thing I will say on that has to do with energy, because you know how dogs have a sense if a human being is afraid? They have that weird kind of sense of like sniffing it out. Human beings have that too, where you can detect someone's energy, someone's mental state, someone's confidence, the aura that someone is giving. And that's really important for us to realize. Think about job interviews. How many job interviews have people walked into and they have either been denied that job, or they have been given that job just because of a certain vibe or energy that they gave off? I mean, there have been people who've walked in with the most spectacular resumes, totally qualified for the job, but the interviewer just got some kind of not so great vibe from that person and let them go. And then on the other end, you have someone walk in who seems like, no, they wouldn't get this job. But because there was something about them that was impressive, they got it. We have that power. We can discern it in other people, but we also in our lives have that, and people are judging us based on our energy. So we shouldn't forget that.
I'm so glad you brought up dogs, because I had a